I got myself a haircut. It was much needed. Hey, what's going on, my street people on YouTube? I actually have a review for you guys today. Well, it's not unusual because I actually did do a Joker review. You should check that out. Spoilers and non-spoilers in this area here somewhere. You can click on them. It'll be there. Before we jump into this review itself for Gemini Man, in case you couldn't tell by the title, like, comment, subscribe, share it with all your friends and your enemies, hit the notification bell. I do videos weekly. Also, don't forget I also have Instagram and Twitter where I post all my memes and behind the scenes stuff and, you know, all random day-to-day stuff that I do in my life, mainly on Instagram, but a bit of stuff on Twitter as well. Anyway, let's jump into this review. So I know that I do mainly do comic book movies. Well, not mainly. That's pretty much all I do on this channel is comic book stuff, and there's a couple historic music stuff and video game stuff on here, but I mainly cover comic books and movies and the comics themselves and TV shows and stuff like that. But you know what? Over here in the UK, it is currently Black History Month, so I thought, you know what, let me try and branch out a little bit more into something that is sort of Black orientated and something kind of comic book orientated. So I did try and find a way to kind of make Gemini Man directly comic book, but there isn't. No matter how hard I searched and tried, there were things called Gemini Man and Gemini, but nothing was there. So I'm just gonna stick with it being a sci-fi movie. So the reason why this movie works in terms of Black History Month, because the leading star is none other than Will Smith. And I do like me some Will Smith. And not honestly though, I do feel that Will Smith has kind of lost that movie touch from like the early to mid 2000s at best, after movies with like I Am Legend, I, Robot, and movies around that time. He hasn't really had that big movie blockbuster. There's been other movies like Focus, which was good, and Suicide Squad, which is a glorified music video, but that's another topic. And you've got movies like Bright, which just didn't work. And then you've got other movies like recently Aladdin, which I actually found very enjoyable. So he's been very hit and miss over the past decade or so. And as always, I always announce it, there are no spoilers in this review. So first things first, I managed these Gemini Man with this bad boy right here, over here. Did I enjoy the movie? Yes, I actually did, surprisingly so. But why did I enjoy it? So if we just look at the story, in concept, it is actually really interesting, albeit not that original, but very interesting. You've got a guy really good at killing, and he's about to retire just after his final kill. And as always, it's not gonna be that way. You try to retire, and when you're a grade A killer, like he's established to be from the opening scene, which is amazing, he's gonna come back. Because you're not allowed to retire when you can kill like nobody's business, even if that is your business. Like I said, the story itself isn't all that original, but the journey I was put on was actually very fun, and it had an organic kind of comedic feel towards it, which I think is something that is definitely Will Smith's strongest point, no matter what he's doing. In terms of the acting, I mean, it didn't blow me away. It definitely didn't blow me away, but it was fun, and it felt like they kind of had a good time on the set just making this movie. It didn't take itself too seriously at parts, but sometimes it definitely did. It tried to hit this kind of emotional feeling, which it didn't strike that with me, and I saw that's what it was trying to do overall, but that's more relation to the story. The emotions that I got from their characters were believable, and they did their job for what they're meant to do, but it didn't blow me away. Will Smith in particular, it was interesting seeing him because look, in all the trailers, you do see him as a younger him, basically. And it was very interesting to see him portray a younger him that's pretty much like half his age. It was kind of like seeing Fresh Prince meets Ali, meets Pursuit of Happiness, and it worked well, but it was also kind of awkward at times because you're thinking, I know this younger character from Fresh Prince, but I also know this other character from these other big movie hits, and Will Smith just as a person. So it was interesting, it worked, but it was also very awkward at the same time. So for the things that I did not like, well, the story itself, as much as I enjoyed the journey, it was incredibly predictable. It was very much a beat by beat, like we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this to create an action story, which I guess works, but it didn't leave me enthralled in what was going on. It didn't leave me on the edge of my seat, which is what I really want from these action type movies. For me, the dialogue is kind of what saved this, with the actors really putting forth what they can do for this. Will Smith, the other actors whose names I can't remember, although there's like three main people that you see kind of like together, and all of them are amazing. They're in a lot of things, I just can't remember their names, and I do apologize. Benedict Wong, that's why I recognize him and why he was so familiar. But yes, Benedict Wong is in this movie, as well as some other girl whose name I can't remember, but I recognize her face. But yes, the actors really delivered in the dialogue, and the dialogue itself, albeit sometimes very predictable in terms of the villains in the movie, the heroes of the story, they felt very interesting and they felt like they connected with each other. The biggest drawback for this movie for me was the trailers. The movie tries to hide who is going to be this person that is trying to stop the heroes, and the trailers give it away. And I think for me, trailers these days, a large portion of them, they kind of ruin the movie. And I think in this case, it definitely not ruined, but lessened your movie theatrical experience because you know what is going to happen for the most part. I really feel that if this movie was marketed differently, you would have had a much more enjoyable time, or rather you will have a much more enjoyable time watching this movie. So as I mentioned before, action scenes, because it is an action movie, they were good. They were definitely good, but they weren't John Wick. And don't get me wrong, not everything's gonna be John Wick. It's a very unique style in terms of what they do in John Wick, but this movie, I feel like, given the character archetypes that they had, it very much could have had that older badass feel to it, and it didn't. It was just like, here's some action scenes, and they were well done, they were well choreographed, but it was just, The biggest drawback of this movie, well, it's not the movie's fault. It's definitely not the movie's fault. I saw this in the IMAX at Cineworld. Shout out to Cineworld, amazing, IMAX is wonderful. It's this weird 3D plus thing. It's so hyper realistic, and it was like at like high frame rate. It was just, it threw off the feeling because it felt like you were on the set watching the movie, which is good. Generally, like that's like a good idea on paper, but when you have it with an action movie, or at least this movie in this case, it didn't quite work out. It was so hyper and so intense, it just kind of threw it off. There's a part at the beginning of the movie where you're just seeing Will set up for his mission, and it looks visually good. And that part's just like, am I on the set, or is this real, or whatever? It kind of looks real and fake at the same time, like Kim Kardashian. It kind of was like, I'm watching Nat Geo, but it's an action movie at times. And it was very, very weird. Like after a while, you do get used to it, but it was just very awkward, and like, it did take away from the movie. For me, that's not the movie's fault, it's just how I saw it, but I think that's the biggest drawback of this movie. Normally with 3D, I'm okay with it. Like, it's okay, it doesn't generally add anything to the movie, except for Doctor Strange. It was amazing in IMAX 3D, but it doesn't always take away. And in this, for me, it took away. And again, visually, at times, it was awkward seeing old and young Smith on the screen at the same time. It just kind of, you knew that there was two people there and it was physical, but it just felt a little weird. Like it felt superimposed at parts, but for the most part, they did a really good job of it. Overall, I did enjoy this movie. It was a very fun ride. I enjoyed the journey. It did not break any grounds for me. It didn't make me go, this is amazing or this is terrible. It was just, you know what? It's a fun action movie. Let's go with it. The drawback that this movie does have in terms of being a cinematic release and so on is that when I saw the trailer, I actually said, this is Looper with the black guy. But anyway, this movie isn't bad, but it just kind of had that Looper feel to it, and Looper did a better job of it, but this isn't a bad movie. Would I recommend seeing this in cinema? I definitely would. Try and not see it in 3D plus. Maybe 3D might work, because the 3D did look good. It was very, very interesting to see it. But 3D plus, not so much. In the high frame rate, probably not so much. But it's just like a normal viewing. I definitely aim to see it again in that, so I have a better interpretation of the movie, so I get to see the full effect of it. But definitely see it in the cinema. At worst, you're not really gonna hurt yourself if you don't see it in the cinema, and probably catch it on a streaming service or Blu-ray, DVD, whatever you watch it on. But I would say give it a shot, but if you miss it, it's okay. And now we're at the end of the video, guys. If you could leave a like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your enemies, hit the notification bell. Don't forget Instagram, Twitter, links will be in the box below as well. Videos are gonna be in this area. Don't forget the subscribe in this area here. Dudes, I still haven't signed up yet, so peace.